Okay, so we are going to, in this video, look at Chopin's Prelude in E minor, Opus 28, number 4. It's one of the easiest Chopin pieces, I would say. I've had a number of students learn it, but there's a lot here. There's really a lot here, and I think the left hand actually is where the study should be made. I mean, the right hand there's some nice legato happening in the right hand, but I would definitely say the left hand has some really tricky fingering, and I would say a lot of students that try to tackle this piece might kind of miss the point of the fingering. So that's what this video is about. I'm actually making this video for a student, but going a little bit more in depth just so I can make it usable by other students or maybe just people on YouTube in general that are studying this piece. So I might break it into two parts. I think we're just going to go through the first half of the left hand in this video. And again, the study of it is sort of the fingering and legato in the left hand chords. I think a lot of students, again, kind of miss the point. You might look at the fingering of this prelude and go, all these finger numbers and all these chords, geez, isn't this just overly complicated? Why in the world would Chopin do this? If you've tackled the piece and if you looked at it, you will understand what I'm talking about. We're not going to sit here and look at every single one, but all these little finger numbers on these chords, they're there for a reason. And you see the slur on top. Chopin wants us to make the left hand as legato as possible, even though it's totally impossible to make it perfectly legato. Well, frankly, we can't make repeated notes legato on piano. You can use the pedal, but we shouldn't just go straight to the pedal and rely on that. So when I'm practicing this kind of thing, I'm not going to use the pedal. I'm going to try to create as much legato as I can without the pedal. And that gives you a lot more control over the pedal. Just a lot more control in general. So we're not really talking about the repeated notes in this video, but when we're playing repeated notes in this prelude, we don't want to have too much of a gap between the notes. So you really want to find that point where you can re-articulate the note, barely lifting out of the keys. You might not even fully lift out of the keys. It kind of depends on what they call the aftertouch of your piano, like where. I'm not talking about the aftertouch on a keyboard. I know this is a keyboard. I'm just using a keyboard for the purposes of this video, but the aftertouch on the piano, on a grand piano, you can feel it's like a little bump when you play. You can find it, but it's sort of like the point where we might be able to sound the note again. You may not have to lift the key all the way up to sound the note again. So I think that there's a lot that can just be studied there, but that's not the purpose of this video. But you can really sit there and try to make it gapless without the pedal. And when you work on this, you'll actually probably find that it helps with your control of dynamics too, because by doing that, it would be very hard to play that way with a strong forte. We want it, but we want a piano touch for this piece. So blah blah blah. Work on that on your own, I suppose. But this video is really more about the study of the fingering and the legato. So just between the first two chords, the measure 1 moving to measure 2, we can see the fourth finger. I assume most editions are the same as this one, but the fourth finger in my edition is on the bottom note, not the fifth finger. And the next chord we have 3 and 5. I did not play that very well. So what am I doing there? Well, I'm making these bottom two notes as legato as I can. The top note, it's not exactly possible to make it legato, but we can lift out of it a little bit early so that we can play it at the same time as this legato movement. Okay? The next chord, this is our fingering. And you might go, why in the world would we switch fingers? What's the point? Well, the point is so now we can make this legato moving from this chord to the next chord. Now it's important to understand when we're practicing this kind of movement where some notes are being repeated and other notes are moving legato, the note that's being repeated most likely has to be lifted a little bit early. I mean, maybe in theory you could just completely perfect it to the point where you don't quite have to. I mean, you really do have to just lift it a little bit early so that you can play it when you play these. Obviously, you don't lift these early because that's the essence of legato. We're lifting these at the exact moment we play these. That's what legato is. But since you can't lift this at the exact moment you play it, since it's the same note, you have to lift it a tiny bit early. Okay? So I think that's something you can kind of focus on and really break down and just go, okay, I'm lifting it early, playing legato. Later on, you can kind of take that bigger gap out of it and try to do it a little quicker. Right? But when you're first practicing it, I would just suggest, okay, lift, legato. Okay? So that's the first two chords. The next one is just a finger substitution. We can't do this legato, the thumb movement, but oh well. Down here, this is legato. See, I lift the top two chords a little early. I lift early. Okay. Later on, you're going to want to try to smoothen that out a little bit, not have such a gap. But you do, no matter what, have to lift slightly early because this is not going to be lifted until the exact moment we play this, whereas these have to be playing at the exact moment we play this. So they have to be lifted a little early. Hope I'm not losing anyone there. Now there's a finger substitution. And again, this finger substitution sets us up so we can play the middle note legato. The other two notes are repeated. See, there, we lift these a little early, and we can play legato between the second and third finger. Okay, so I'm going to go through that whole part. This is on, I think on most editions that I've seen, this is the first system of music, so play that. Just the voicings. I'm not playing all the repetitions. And I'm kind of exaggerating these lifts. Lifting, legato. Again, I'm exaggerating all those lifts. You would want to probably really try to smoothen those out so there's not so much of a gap. There's a lot to work on. Okay, next system. We have, so this is measure 4. And I'm talking the fourth complete measure. We don't really count that little pickup measure as a measure, the anacrusis. So it doesn't get a measure number. So measure 4 is right here. Second finger on G sharp. And again, that's so that we can make the middle note legato. Okay, now this is a tricky part because Chopin decides, it's in my edition, the fingering. I don't know if it's Chopin's fingering, but I kind of assume it is. I don't know. I know that this is stuff that comes up in a lot of Chopin, these kinds of intricate fingerings to kind of create as much legato as we can in chordal passages. So we got top note moving down, legato. We can use the second finger here. But it does mean we have to lift this a little early because for me, even for my hands, I don't have the biggest hands, but this is an uncomfortable stretch. I would sacrifice that, lifting that note a little early so I can drop my fourth finger here. But we're trying to make the top notes legato. These guys are going to lift a little early. And then we drop into our thumb. So those top 3 notes are legato. There's a little angling happening here with my hand, sort of like a little turn to do that. And then drop. Okay, now I'm on my fourth finger here and then I switch. Okay, we need a switch so we can make from here to here legato. And now there's a finger switch. And now here you see on my edition I have 5 here. But the next note is 4. And again, Chopin's using one of these tricks where we cross over the 5th with our 4th. Okay. And then legato. So that's the second system. So I'm going to play through that one more time. Legato in the middle. So the outer notes lift. We can lift the bottom early. I'm lifting the middle a little bit early just so I can position my hand a little bit better. And then drop here. Everything else lifts a little early. Just a little bit. Switch fingers. This is a legato movement now. The outer voices lift early. Switch fingers. And the fingers, all this finger swapping is just to set up the next legato. Just trying to create opportunities to make this as smooth sounding as possible without the pedal. Legato at the bottom. Okay. So this is the last measure of the second system for me. Measure 7. And even from measure 7 to measure 8, we have legato from the third finger to the fourth. See that? So, just keep an eye out for that because we're actually going to start at measure 8 now for a little bit. So here we are. Just a finger switch right there. We have to just slide the thumb over. I don't think it makes any sense to do this, but if you really wanted to be fancy, you could. I think you really could. You could afford to do it. You can do. And then finger the music is moving slow enough. You can try to perfect that legato, but I would say maybe it's a little much, at least for the edition that I have in front of me and my student has in front of them. So I'm not going to say we need to change that one there. But so we switch fingers, and the next one in my edition I have 5-2. Well, I actually do think this is easy enough to switch to 4-2, and that's going to make it so we can make these legato. Let's look at that one more time. So this is just the first measure of the third system. Switching fingers so that we lift early, legato. Okay. Switching, well, actually, here the top note can be legato. So that way we can actually make the top legato. Switch fingers, switch fingers, switch fingers. This is how my edition has this all worked out. And then the rest is actually not so bad. This is legato at the bottom, then the middle, and then the bottom two are going to be legato. And it does that a few times. So the top note's lifting a little early, the bottom staying legato. So, you might, if you're a student and you're trying to learn this on your own, you might go, whoa, that's a lot of work. Yeah, it is a lot of work. But the reason we work on that kind of thing is, well, you could probably fake it and use the pedal and kind of cover up all this this nonsense and kind of go, oh, well, I'm just going to play it and lift in between every single chord and just use 1, 3, and 5 through most of the piece. Yeah, but you're kind of missing the point of maybe working on music like this, because this, if you work on this fingering, it's going to prepare you to better execute more complicated pieces where maybe we don't have the luxury of just playing super slow and using the pedal. But if your goal is just to get through the piece, well, maybe these are details you don't care about. But if your goal is really to improve, you're going to get a lot out of studying this kind of fingering. You need to study it so much, in fact, that when you get to more advanced music, it's not such a headache to do. So it becomes kind of natural. But when you work on this kind of stuff over time, it does become more natural, and your hands will start to just kind of do these things on their own. Hopefully this video is a little bit helpful. I'm going to play through, I guess I played through the first two systems twice, and then I didn't do that with the last one. So let me do that one more time, just the last system, one more time, just all the movements. Fingers switch. Oh, sorry. Switching to the third, switching to the second and fourth, and this is so we're preparing for this legato. Second finger, switching fingers, switching fingers, switching fingers. Again, this, the technical name for switching fingers is finger substitution. But honestly, that's a little bit more of a mouthful. Anyway, and then this is legato, bottom are legato, legato in the bottom two voices. And And that about does it. That's about the halfway point in this piece. There's still more to be done, but maybe I'll make another video. It's already 15 minutes long. Okay, bye-bye.